I kind of hate how much I loved the Conversations with Friends miniseries. So me and my mom were watching the Conversations with Friends miniseries. It's on Hulu, it's from the BBC, and we finished it last night and I just was so obsessed. I loved it so much, which is really surprising because I did not like the book. I did like the Normal People book, and I did like Beautiful World, Where Are You? So the only one that I gave 3 stars was Conversations with Friends, but I wanted to watch the miniseries because obviously Joe Alwyn is in it. He plays Nick, and he is Taylor Swift's IRL boyfriend. So I was like, obviously I have to watch this. And I think he did a really great job in the show. I thought it was really well done. So because I'm so obsessed with it, I decided to Google what book should you read after you watch the Conversations with Friends show. And obviously there were so many different like articles and stuff like that, but I found an article from Glamour UK, and they came up with 22 books to read if you like Conversations with Friends. So I was like, oh, that'll be fun to like scroll through, see if I own any of these books. And I decided I wanted to go through all of them and then choose the ones that I'm going to read. So the first book on this list is Love in Color by Bolu Babalola. And it says, in her visionary collection of short stories, Bolu Babalola imbues traditional myths from across the world with a delightful sense of mischief and of course love. Bolu's prose is rich enough to immediately invest you in her various narratives, while reserving a punchier element to deliver a subtle commentary on contemporary power dynamics. Warning, if you're planning to read this on holiday, you may just finish it before the plane takes off. So there's the first recommendation. I've never read that book before, so I mean, maybe we can read it. The thing is that I need to be able to find it for free. So I need to be able to find it either from my library, from Hoopla, or from Libby. So those are the only ways that I'm going to be able to read any of these books unless I magically own it already. I'm not going to buy anything for this video. I mean, unless I really like the book. If I like read a book I don't own, maybe I'll think of like buying it for myself, but it's gonna be a big maybe. The next recommendation is Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan, which I have personally read, but I'm gonna read what it says on the article. And it says, long listed for the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2021, Exciting Times follows Ava as she departs Dublin for Hong Kong, where she teaches English to children far wealthier than herself. She soon finds herself entangled in a convenient relationship with Julian, a British banker, which is threatened by the arrival of Edith, a Hong Kong-born lawyer who seems to connect with Ava on a totally different and more exciting level. Exciting times indeed. I also gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I actually read this book for the same video that I read Conversations with Friends with, where I read some like hot girl TikTok books. I would love to do a part 2 to that video, especially during the summer. So if that sounds exciting, if that sounds interesting, let me know and I will definitely do it. Personally, I did like Exciting Times a little bit more than Conversations, but it really was kind of on the same level. Both pretty boring, main character's pretty boring. I do think that Exciting Times gets a bit of a knock because there's some like dubious racial things in that book, so just keep an eye out for that. So we're not going to be reading that because I already read it. And then the next recommendation is Heartburn by Nora Ephron. If you're tired of seeing female millennial authors being lazily labeled the new Nora Ephron, why not return to the original writer herself? Heartburn follows Rachel Samstadt, a pregnant cookery writer who discovers that her husband is having an affair. She processes the betrayal through an enduringly witty combination of group therapy, delicious recipes, and revenge. It's the quintessential comfort book. I actually just watched for the very first time 2 Nora Ephron movies. I watched When Harry Met Sally, and I also watched You've Got Mail. So my first 2 Nora Ephron movies, I couldn't even remember the titles of them. I did really enjoy them though. Like, I would definitely watch them again. They might be like on my new rotation of rom-coms, but I really liked those. And I would love to read anything by Nora Ephron. I just don't know if it'll be available. And so the next recommendation is actually one that I own. And I think it's the only one that I own from this list besides like a few others. And this one I haven't read yet, and that is The Lesser Bohemians by Amir McBride. I am really excited to read this book. I've seen this on a lot of Sally Rooney recommendations lists, so I'm pretty sure that I'm going to love it. I really hope that I do, because I think that it's totally perfect, and I'm so glad that I own it. In the article it says, The Lesser Bohemians is Amir McBride's second novel, which follows an Irish 18-year-old as she pursues a new life in mid-90s Camden, London. She soon finds herself enveloped in an all-consuming relationship with an actor who happens to be 20 years her senior. This captivating novel confidently explores the impact of our first big love and how it inevitably changes us for better or worse. That sounds a lot like Conversations with Friends. So I think there's something going on with Irish authors. They seem to be writing very similar books. The next book is People Person by Candice Carty Williams. I actually own another Candice Carty Williams book, but it's not on this list, which is kind of a bummer. It says, creating a follow-up to her debut novel Queenie was always going to be a tall order, but it seems Candice Carty Williams simply has bestseller in her blood. People Person is the irresistible tale of 5 siblings who only have one thing in common: their unreliable, absent father. Still, following a truly unpredictable course of events, the siblings are able to uncover their dormant connections and forge a new definition of family. Unfortunately, it wasn't Queenie that they recommended, so I'm not going to be reading that, but it's such a bummer. I really want to read it, so maybe, you know, it might go on like my hot girl reading list. I don't know, we'll see. The next book is Almost Adults by Ali Pantoni. And this says, we spend our teenage years waiting for the day we can finally leave school and start living our best adult lives. But what happens when you're technically an adult and your best life has yet to materialize? In her debut novel, Ali Pantoni examines the lives of 4 oh-so-relatable friends who are each grappling with the overwhelming expectations of adulthood. Whether you're in the midst of a breakup or terrified of starting a new job, this book is a soothing reminder that you and your mates are already nailing life. That sounds really good. Full disclosure, I did already check which books were available to me. This one wasn't, and I'm so bummed, because like I think I would love that book. The next one is Sweet Home by Wendy Erskine, and this says, Sweet Home is a remarkable collection of short stories charting the blistering lives of several expertly crafted characters living in East Belfast. There's a husband and wife duo whose lives become intertwined with the young couple they pay to do their gardening, the lonely woman who becomes fascinated with her niqab-wearing neighbor, and so many more vivid characters whose interactions reveal a lot about human connection. I'm at 10 minutes already. Should I just like zoom through the rest of these? Okay, so the next one is Swing Time by Zadie Smith. I've never read that one before. The next one is Luster by Raven Leilani. I have read this book before. I've recommended it more times than I can count. 5 out of 5 stars, one of my favorite books of all time. It was so, so good. It was also, I think I read that also for my Hot Girl Books from TikTok video. So, yeah. You Exist Too Much is the next book. That's by Zaina Arafat. And I love that book as well. I gave that 4 out of 5 stars. It was amazing. I read it recently. Definitely recommend that one. The next book is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I haven't read that, but it's definitely on my TBR. I don't own it, unfortunately, or else I'd read it for this video. The next one is Girl, Woman, Other by Bernadine Evaristo, and I haven't read that one yet either, unfortunately. The next book is The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan, and I have seen the movie. I actually watched the movie for a final in my diversity in film class, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic, and I wrote a little essay about it. I think I compared it to Breakfast at Tiffany's, or like I did like a, I don't know if it was like a compare contrast sort of thing, but it was just kind of like talking about the representation of Asian Americans in Breakfast at Tiffany's compared to the representation in The Joy Luck Club. Really like that movie. It's so good. I haven't read the book though, unfortunately. I do have another Amy Tan book, but it's not The Joy Luck Club. The next book is The Club by Ellery Lloyd, and this one I have not read either. I've never even heard of this one, which is crazy because I feel like I've heard of most of the other books. But this one sounds pretty interesting. It sounds almost cultish, like a very culty book. The next book is Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed, and I have read that book. It was really good. Loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. The next book is Tin Man by Sarah Winman. This one also sounded really good, and I've seen it around quite a bit, so I'm sure it must be awesome. The next one is Ruth and Penn by Emily Pine. Never heard of it, never read it. The next one is Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. This one also sounds really good. So I can't remember if I found that one or not. The next book is another one that sounds so good, and this is Ordinary People by Diana Evans. This one says, shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2019, Ordinary People follows two couples who are forced to confront the relative strength and safety of their relationships. Evans's prose is utterly magnetic, enlisting the reader to care deeply about the characters' fates. Sounds awesome. I don't think that I found that one, but I wish I did. The next book is Beautiful World, Where Are You? By obviously Sally Rooney. I have read that book. I read it a few months ago, back in March, and I loved it. It was fantastic. 5 out of 5 stars. Probably my favorite Sally Rooney, I think. Because honestly, it goes Beautiful World, Where Are You? Normal People, Conversations with Friends. The next book is Saltwater by Jessica Andrews. And oh no, it's not the last one. I thought it was the last one for a second, but haven't read that one. I've never even heard of it, but it sounds really interesting as well. The next book is The Country Girls, 3 novels and an epilogue by Edna O'Brien, another Irish author, which is, you know, a given because we're talking about Sally Rooney. Haven't read that one either. The next one is one that I have been seeing all over TikTok, Instagram, and that is Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. And I've seen this one literally everywhere. Everybody's reading it. I haven't read it yet. I am so behind. The next book is You Have to Make Your Own Fun Around Here by Frances Mackin. This also sounds really good. I don't think I was able to find that one. The next book also sounds so good, and that's How Do We Know We're Doing It Right by Pandora Sykes. This one is actually, I think, one of the only nonfiction books on this list, and it just sounds really good. And also, that was the last book on the list, so as you can tell, I only have this book physically. There are a few other books on the list that I do own physically, but I've already read them, so we're not going to read them again for this video. So the first book, obviously, on this TBR is going to be The Lesser Bohemians by Amir McBride. I am so excited about this because I found it at the Dollar Tree, gosh, back in 2019. I think I found it literally the day I went to the Jonas Brothers concert in 2019. Was that October? So yeah, I'm really excited to read this book. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I think it'll be great. And then I was able to find a few other books on Hoopla and Libby. I think mostly Libby. I found 3 of the books on the list on Libby. And the first one is Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. So we have that book, which is great. It's only 4 hours long, so it really shouldn't be a super difficult long read. The next one is Tin Man by Sarah Winman. That one's only 5 hours long, which is great. Another very short book. And then the third one is actually one that wasn't necessarily mentioned in the list, but it is by an author that was mentioned, and that is I Remember Nothing by Nora Ephron. And that book is only 3 hours long, so I decided to add it to the list because I'm like, you know what? You might as well. So I'm actually going to borrow all of these books and add them to the TBR, and since they're so short, I'm not super worried about like not finishing them. I think that they're gonna be super easy to finish, and thankfully they were all like available to borrow, which I was really worried about because I was like, all of these books are from Libby, so you kind of have to make sure that they're available to borrow, like nobody else has them checked out, whereas with Hoopla you can just check out any of the books at any time. So yeah, I was a little bit nervous to see if like anybody would also be borrowing them, but thankfully they were all available, so that's great. My camera fell because I had to switch the battery and I just totally dropped it, so we're working here. But I did actually find 2 other books on Hoopla, so we're great. We have like a huge, you know, meaty TBR. And one of them is Saltwater by Jessica Andrews, and the second one is Sweet Home by Wendy Erskine. So we have, what, like 6 books that I could read in this vlog. I probably won't get to all of them. I mean, I might, because honestly, those first 3 audiobooks are like combined the length of like a normal audiobook. So I could potentially read all 6 books in this vlog. Pray for my sanity, but I might not do that. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. If I feel totally burnt out by like the 4th audiobook, then we might not finish all the books, but we're gonna see how it goes. I'm really excited. I haven't been reading a lot of audiobooks this month. I've kind of been taking a rest. I've been, you know, going really easy on myself because I think I'm about like 60 books into my Goodreads challenge. So I'm doing really well this month. I mean, this year. Oh my God. I'm doing really well this year. So I don't really have any like worries about not being able to complete my challenge. I'm pretty close. So yeah, you know, I'm trying not to be too hard on myself. I've only read a couple of books this month, and that's totally fine with me, but I would love to read some more. So I'm so excited. And I can't wait to take you on this journey. I don't know what book I'm gonna start first. Maybe I'll start with like the physical book first, because I know that's gonna take me a while, so I might as well start it now and see how I like it. I'm so excited. Okay, so I haven't updated in a really long time, so I have a few things to update about, and I have read 2 books so far from this list. The first one was I Remember Nothing and Other Stories by Nora Ephron. I ended up giving that book a 3 out of 5 stars. I'll talk about it later on in the video, but I just kind of found it to be pretty middle of the road for me. I wasn't like super impressed by it in any way, but I also didn't hate it. I think I was probably just expecting more from it, like something more interesting, but it really just felt like a stream of consciousness sort of like vibe, and that wasn't exactly what I wanted from it. It just felt kind of like musings from an older person, and I mean, I'm sure that's great for people who are like super huge fans of Nora Ephron, like love her work and all that kind of stuff. I am not quite as like versed in her work as other people are. I just recently watched 2 of her movies for the first time, so definitely not for me personally, but I did enjoy it. I would love to read more from Nora Ephron, so maybe I will find some other books from her. And then I also read Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson, and that one I ended up absolutely loving. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I read it on the way there and back to pick up my brother and his girlfriend from the airport, and it was so good. It was so amazing. I was obsessed. It's like this really amazing novel that was like really character focused. It follows this family of like, I think it's like what, 3 generations of family members, and it's just so good. Like, it really is truly like character study, and it's, oh my god, it just blew me away. I absolutely loved it. And it was kind of like a full cast almost of narrators. There were like multiple narrators for each character, so it really worked for me personally. I really loved it, so I ended up giving it 5 out of 5 stars, and I loved it. So I also started another book today while I was doing my hair, because I had to wash my hair today. It was Salt Water by Jessica Andrews, and I'm almost halfway there. I think I'm a little over 25% of the way, so I'm probably about like 35% of the way through. And this one I'm also kind of like not really sure how I feel about it. I think there are moments of it that I really enjoy, and then there are also moments where I'm like, I don't know if I'm like super into this. I can't really tell how I feel about it at the moment, so it's a little difficult to explain. It's kind of similar in vibe to Red at the Bone, where it's like more character driven than plot driven, but it also kind of feels like tiny minuscule vignettes from not only the main character's life but also the life of her family members. And it's like the timeline is so all over the place. There really doesn't seem to be a lot of rhyme or reason to the timeline exploration of these characters, so you know, it's an interesting It's an interesting book. It's a debut novel, so I mean, what can you expect? I tend to give a lot more lenience to debut novels because I just know, you know, it's their first book. It's going to be a little bit awkward. It's not a big deal. So for the most part, I would say that I'm enjoying it. I don't want to like sugarcoat it too much and be like, oh, I'm loving it, it's so good, and then like 2 seconds later the next clip is like, oh, I hated it, I gave it 2 stars. So like, you know, I'm kind of lukewarm about it at the moment, but otherwise I'm having a really fun time reading these books. I don't know if I would necessarily say that they're like perfect recommendations for conversations with friends, specifically the show. I would say that the one that is most like Conversations with Friends is probably the one I'm currently reading, but I also don't know if that's because like the book is set in Ireland, the characters are Irish, so it just feels more Conversations with Friends. But yeah, I don't know honestly. So yeah, I'm gonna think more about that. Especially with the way that like these books relate to the show specifically, especially like compared to the book. I don't know. These are thoughts to ruminate on for the moment. So I will get back to you all probably tomorrow at some point. Hopefully not when it's like in the middle of the night. And yeah, so I will update you all if and when I finish Saltwater. Okay, so I've been doing some thinking, and I really want to read something that's a bit more fun, if you know what I mean. Like, I am currently reading Saltwater by Jessica Andrews, and I am not finding it to be very fun, honestly. Like, I have no desire to continue to read this book, so I think in the grand scheme of things, since I have so many books checked out for this video, we can just DNF it, right? Like, we can just DNF it. That's totally fine. So I think we're gonna DNF it. I think that's what we're gonna do. I don't know what's going on with the lighting, coloring situation on this camera. I'm sure that it got messed up at some point because I was letting my brother and my cousin use it to pretend to vlog. So I'm sure that it got messed up at some point. I might need to fix it. Is that better? Yeah, I think I fixed it. Okay. That looks so much better already. So yeah, I think that's gonna be the deal here. And we are going to DNF Saltwater. There's nothing about it that is really speaking to me on any sort of level. I'm not enjoying the book. It would just be better in the long run if I DNF'd it. So that's what we're gonna do. It's fine, it's not that big of a deal. And we're gonna be fine with that. So let's choose a different book to read. So I have Sweet Home by Wendy Erskine. This one I think is a short story collection. And then let me see what I have on Libby, because that one I'm not really into either. Wait a second. I might need to do something else. Okay, Book of Night by Holly Black is ready to borrow. So we're gonna borrow it. I'm really excited. I'm really excited. So we might be reading that instead. We might be reading that instead. So I might need to put a pause on this reading vlog because I need to read it. I need to see if it's like really as bad as people say it is. So okay. It's been a while. It's been quite a few weeks since I watched Conversations with Friends since I even made this video. And I've done a lot of reading since then. I haven't finished a lot of these books. I did finish 3 of them, which I find to be a really great number, but I did at least try most of the books that I said I was going to try. It was very hit and miss. Very hit and miss. Like, some of the books I loved and finished, and other books I just did not like and could not finish. So let's go through the books that I did finish. First and foremost, the first book that I read for this vlog was I Remember Nothing and Other Reflections by Nora Ephron. I believe I gave this book like a 2 or 3 out of 5 stars. 3 stars, yeah. 3 stars. I have now seen 3 Nora Ephron movies. I have seen Sleepless in Seattle, which is the last one that I saw. I think I saw it maybe 2-3 weeks ago, maybe less than that. No, I think I had COVID, so it was probably about 2 weeks ago. And then I've also seen You've Got Mail, and I've seen When Harry Met Sally. So this one was actually a nonfiction collection of essays. This wasn't technically on the list of books, but I kind of swapped it out for another Nora Ephron book because this was the only one I could find on such short notice. I was pretty meh about this collection. I felt like some of the stories really worked for me. Other ones just kind of felt like an older white woman complaining about life, which, I mean, I guess that's great, that's fine. I just don't care, which is fine, you know. I think that we can all care about things that we want to care about. This just was not it. It just, I don't know, like, it just kind of felt like that old person who wishes it was still the 90s, and it's like, well, it's not the 90s anymore, it's not the 80s, like, let's move on, let's move on. Which, I mean, RIP Nora Ephron. I don't want to say like too many negative things about her, but like, I mean, I love her movies are great. The nonfiction stuff I can leave. We can leave that alone. Then I read Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. I loved this book. I thought it was fantastic, but I do not see how it's at all comparable, or like, I don't feel like, I mean, I guess maybe fans of Conversations with Friends would also like this book, but not because it's anything like Conversations with Friends. Like, they wouldn't like it because it's similar, they would just like it because it's a good book. Like, I don't see why this book was on this list, because it literally has nothing to do with Conversations with Friends. Like, nothing, not even a little bit. Like, I was reading it and I'm like, this is a great book, this is fantastic. There's nothing comparable. Like, there's no like plot line that's kind of similar, there's no similar characters, there's no similar topics being explored. It's literally just a good book, which is great. I mean, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it, but I don't see the correlation, unfortunately. I guess I can kind of see where, like, in the show Conversations with Friends, we really get to see a lot of like the main character's relationships with her parents, which are kind of like tense and complicated. So I guess I can kind of see the connection. I don't feel like that's as present in the books though, if I'm not mistaken. But in the show, there's definitely that complicated relationship with her parents, which is definitely featured in Red at the Bone. Like, this book is all about family. It basically follows this black family, and they have a really interesting past, and you kind of get to see like 3 different generations. You get to see like the parents, and then the daughter, and then, you know, she's also pregnant with her own daughter. And you really get to see like the entire like the scope of the family. It's definitely like plotless, which I think also Conversations with Friends is also pretty plotless. It's definitely more vibes and family and like character. So I guess that's kind of where the similarities are, but overall I don't really see exactly, like, I really have to stretch to find the similarities between these 2 books. So I don't necessarily see why, was it Glamour UK decided to put that book with Conversations, but it was still a good book and I'm really glad I read it. And then Finally, I read Tin Man by Sarah Winman, and I also gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I was so impressed and blown away. I talk about it a little bit in my June wrap-up. I did read it for Pride Month because it follows 2 gay men, or possibly 1 gay man and 1 bisexual man, and their friendship from like childhood until adulthood, and like finding themselves and going through the AIDS epidemic and all of that. So it's a very emotional read. It also kind of has that like plotless but character sort of vibes, very character driven, which I feel like is pretty much true for like any recommendation for Sally Rooney. Like, Sally Rooney does not do plot, but she does do vibes and character, which I think is great, and like I love a good character moment. So I really enjoyed Tin Man. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I read it as an audiobook. I actually read all of these as an audiobook, and they were all fantastic audiobooks. But yeah, I think that if I was going to choose a favorite, it'd probably be Tin Man. I think that was definitely my favorite of any of the books that I read for this video. But also Red at the Bone was really good too. I mean, they both got 5 out of 5 stars. It's really hard to choose between both of them because they are pretty different, but yeah. But these 2 books don't really see how they relate to Conversations with Friends, which I think is like the issue I had with the list in general. Like, a lot of the books that I had read from that list, I'm like, okay, I understand that. Like, Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan, like, of course, that's like 100%, that's basically a copy and paste of Conversations with Friends, just like some things like changed a little bit. And then also You Exist Too Much by Zaina Arafat. Like, yeah, that book is definitely a good recommendation for conversations. It makes sense. But the ones that I actually read didn't make as much sense. And then there was a few books that I did try to read and then like just could not get through them. The one that I did own was The Lesser Bohemians by Amir McBride, and I attempted to read it. I think I probably read about like 20-30 pages of this book, and I could not get through it. I was not enjoying the writing style. There's just nothing about it that was drawing me in, and unfortunately I just had to DNF it. Not that great of a book, unfortunately. And then there were also the audiobooks that I borrowed from Hoopla. So there was Saltwater by Jessica Andrews, which I did attempt to read. Kind of the same thing with The Lesser Bohemians. Like, I just could not get into it. Like, I could see what this book was trying to do, but it was just so boring. It was so dry. It was so slow. It just was such a drag to read, honestly. And I'm not trying to find books that are like trying to do too much. This was trying to do too much. It was trying to like be something that I don't think it should have been. And then Sweet Home by Wendy Erskine did not even attempt, because I just was like, at that point I was really discouraged and was kind of like, I don't think I'm gonna like any of these books. So maybe I'll come back to that book at some point and like try it again, but I just didn't even feel like trying it. That, I'm gonna be honest. I'm going to be honest, I did not feel like trying it. So that was just kind of on me. But I do want to say I have some other recommendations for conversations that I feel like are better than the ones that I saw in that list. And one of them is The Subtweet by Vivek Shraya. This one definitely gives Conversations with Friends vibes, like big time. And I feel like if you like the show, if you like the book, this one is going to be perfect for you. It is very much like drama. Very drama, especially with the show. I feel like the show is definitely more dramatic than the book. So if you really like the show, check out The Subtweet. Another one is definitely Writers and Lovers by Lily King. This book, perfect for Sally Rooney fans. One of my favorite books of all time. It just is so perfect. Of course, Beach Read, I think is a great one. Really any Emily Henry book I think is good for a Sally Rooney fan who wants more romance. Also, One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle. I think would be another really great recommendation. Days of Distraction by Alexandra Chang. I didn't love that book, but I do feel like it'd be good for people who like Sally Rooney. They said this would be fun. Race, Campus Life, and Growing Up by Eternity Martis. Another really great recommendation. This one's nonfiction. So yeah, Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. So yeah, like I feel like there are definitely better books to read compared to some of the ones on the list. I would totally recommend reading Red at the Bone and Tin Man, despite the fact that they are nothing like Conversations with Friends. Literally nothing like that show or the book. So still read them. They're really good. And yeah, I feel like that's literally everything I have to talk about. I still have not finished the Normal People show. I don't know when that's gonna happen. Sorry. But yeah, so I hope you all enjoyed this vlog. I had a really fun time making it, even though I did get COVID in the middle of it, so that kind of like didn't make it the best experience. But I mean, I read some really great books despite that, so I think we all had a really great time. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, Storygraph, TikTok. All the links are going to be down below, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye! Ooh, I thought it'd be me and you.